everybody wants to start with Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's at the top of everybody's list, understandably so. I don't think anything's changed, Shaun, since a few days ago, maybe it was 3-4 days ago, when, at the beginning of this thing, Knicks obviously want to be in there. They wanted to be in there then. They would want to be in there now. They were on the outside looking in then, and it's just a matter of assets and not being able to compete with the offers from Miami or whatever Minnesota would put on the table, and even a Golden State. I mean, the draft compensation is not there for New York, and so that's kind of where it sits. Nobody I've talked to sees them as any kind of a front runner. Yes, they were aggressive, and I expect them to be aggressive until and unless they figured out that they could not get a deal done. And so I know there was a few suggestions that the Knicks were not being aggressive, and if that was the case, if that is the case, it's only because they know they can't get there to the finish line ahead of this trade deadline. I just don't want anybody to be confused about the Knicks' interest in Giannis Antetokounmpo. It was there, and it is there, and it would be there in a major way if they could get close to trading for Giannis. And so that's kind of where everything sits. And I wonder, Shaun, for you, are you at ease knowing Giannis and you have this group, or do you wish the Knicks would have pushed and would push and get something done?
So that's a tough spot. I mean, for me personally, with trades, I try to just kind of root for who I'm rooting for until the time comes to root for somebody else. But we're playing really good basketball right now. If you would have asked me this question 2 weeks ago during the 2-9 slide, we looked terrible. I may have had at least a different tone in my answer. But I'm confident in the team that we have and what they can do. And I also am confident in the front office. And I think that's a beautiful place to be at as a fan. It's like, I'm cool if we keep rocking this way. If we decide to push the chips in and go for it. Honestly, as far as Minnesota, I know they traded a war chest of picks for Rudy Gobert. The same way we traded a lot of picks for Mikal Bridges. I don't think they have a lot of draft capital to offer. Golden State is basing their package around Jonathan Kuminga, who they've been holding hostage for years. And what I saw was Jimmy Butler, who has an ACL injury currently. And in Miami, I mean, Miami might have something, but I just don't think there's a lot of super strong trade packages out there that we couldn't get near if we were a preferred destination. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility if that was something we were looking to do. However, I don't think it's something we need to look to do. I think we'll be very much okay if we don't. My guy Chief Ike yesterday on our show said, the thing is, Giannis has been on the team that was bad. Giannis has been on the team that got knocked out in the first round. Giannis has been on the team that got knocked out in the second round. So it's like, if one of these other teams make a move for Giannis, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are the end-all be-all. That doesn't necessarily put them ahead of us. At the end of the day, we just got to run our race. And so I trust the guys we have. I think last year they took it to heights that we haven't seen in this millennium. And I think that this year they can push it even further, and we just got to stay locked in.
Look, I think that's totally fair, and I get where you're coming from. The one thing I would say is I don't think the Knicks offer in terms of right now, because of that draft compensation, would be in the same neighborhood of the other three teams. With Minnesota, you're talking about Jaden McDaniels being involved in some way, shape, or form in that deal, whether it's to get draft assets from another team to send to Milwaukee or to send them directly to Milwaukee. So, the Knicks offer, I just think that it's to me, the way I see it, I don't think they would be in that same realm as these other three teams. But look, you get to the offseason, let's say Milwaukee doesn't make a deal, and teams have kind of been under the impression that Milwaukee would have to be blown away to make a deal at the deadline, which makes sense. Let's say nothing happens, then you see what's going on in the offseason, you see where you are then, and it's a different landscape. But I do think that this is going to be the group they go forward with. They're going to maybe make a trade or two ahead of the deadline. I don't think there's going to be a major move. The Jaren Jackson move to Utah. I know that the Knicks had at least checked in there with Memphis on Jaren Jackson Jr. Obviously, nothing came to fruition there, but I guess just doing their due diligence, they did check in with Memphis. And so it's interesting to see how the next couple of days will shape the rest of the season. But yeah, I think Giannis not happening and may not get moved at the deadline. So we'll see where that goes. But, there's other targets here for the Knicks, Shaun, that we'll get into in a little bit. But for you, take Jalen out of the picture. Who are your untouchables at the deadline?
Oof. Great question. Jalen for sure, as you said. At that point, I feel like if Giannis isn't on the table, then mostly everyone is pretty untouchable for me. Like I'm not trading a Mikhail, I'm not trading an OG, I'm not trading a Cat, I'm not trading a Josh, I'm not trading a Deuce on the excellent contract he's on. I'm not trading any of those guys for marginal moves. You know, you gotta listen if it's Giannis, you gotta listen for anybody. That's just the nature of the value he has and carries. But outside of that, you know, I feel like we can make some fringe bubble moves on the roster, some end of the rotation guys, and I wouldn't be trading a starter for anyone like that. And there's no one that I see is in the market. I am so glad that we didn't go after Jaren Jackson or that we didn't get Jaren Jackson. I think that a lot of people, they fall in love with the grass on the other side, just assuming it's greener when they don't necessarily watch it every day. Jaren Jackson is 7 feet tall and fails to average 6 rebounds a game. I do not want him anywhere near my basketball team. We seem to like romanticize other people's problems and demonize our own. And so I'm glad we kept our guys. I'm looking forward to keeping our guys. And I would say that everyone is off limits if Giannis is on the table.
There's one trade that still I think is likely at this point. That's one we've been talking about for a while. Guerschon Yabusele. Yabusele obviously not working out for both the team and the player. The Knicks. This was their from a money standpoint, their biggest commitment in the offseason. It just hasn't worked with Mike Brown, and so I'm sure the Knicks will continue to pursue avenues here to get Guerschon to a different spot. And the tricky thing there is it's his player option, right? That player option in the era of the second apron and every dollar counting makes it tricky to actually move him. And so you wonder, would the Knicks have to add draft compensation to do that? Is that a red line for them? I still think that when we get to the buzzer there, Yabusele will be on another team. But Shaun, for you, you look at this season, do you get hung up at all on the idea that this did not work out as their biggest, quote unquote, biggest free agent addition?
I don't get hung up on that at all. I mean, when we came into the season or in the offseason, I thought that the two moves to get both Jordan Clarkson and Yabusele were good moves to make, especially considering we didn't have a lot of flexibility. And so to be able to make those moves, they're swings at the end of the day. Yabusele came in, he didn't seem like he was in the greatest shape, whatever it may be, whatever the reasons may be. I don't, I'm not going to have a huge gripe with the front office over that. Honestly, I've enjoyed the minutes that Mo Diawara has gotten. And at this point, would prefer to watch Mo Diawara just for the sake of his development, but also for his, on court impact today and the length that he has and the way that he can fit in with our wings and Mikhail and OG and Mo having that length on the court at all times when he's especially in lineups with Mitch. I think that's just super helpful. And so we have so many guys who are playing well and so many guys who can help this team contribute to winning basketball in the postseason that I don't need to necessarily harp on somebody who hasn't necessarily lived up to what we may have expected from them. And, I wish him the best in whatever endeavor he has going forward.
Fair, very fair. It's interesting because, the Knicks, we talked about Jose Alvarado a lot, talked about Yves Missy. I would add Nick Richards. I think the Knicks have checked in on Nick Richards. So I think you're looking at backup guards, backup wings as the most likely scenario there. And it hinges to some degree on Yabusele. Talked about also Najee Marshall being on the Knick radar. But there, it's just a salary thing where they would have to give up something significant to get Najee in here. And I don't think they would go to that level. They have the 7 second-round picks to spend, but I think it's a salary matching issue there. Same thing with Klay Thompson, because I think the Mavericks will listen. They have been listening on Klay Thompson. And I think there was a degree of mutual interest, actually, when Klay was figuring things out last offseason going to Dallas. There was a degree of mutual interest between Klay and the Knicks. I think he was interested in coming out here. Obviously ends up in Dallas. But that's another one where the salaries, I think, are just too tricky to match up. So it makes it almost a moot point to talk about the Thompsons and the Marshalls. But I do think you look at those backups, and I'll add a Goga Batats too in Orlando, who the Knicks had interest in the offseason. I think those are the moves that are likely coming here, those kind of players. And Giannis, I mean, look, I would say this. if Giannis gets moved at the deadline, if somebody blows Milwaukee away, it's just going to be interesting to see how that team goes compared to how the Knicks go, because I think objectively, you're looking at that as not a missed, I would say missed opportunity, because they didn't have the firepower to go after him. So I think to me, that's how I would look at it. But let's see what happens with Giannis. Milwaukee has been asking for the stars, the moon and the sun, but maybe they get it ahead of the deadline. So that's kind of where it sits with the trade deadline.